Welcome to Ascension with V, where we talk about spiritual awakening, ascension, and everything in between. I'm your host, Stashia Jeanette, aka V, and today we have a special guest who's about to take us on a journey with their unique experiences and their gifts. Marcie, introduce us and tell us what you do and what you are here to talk about today.
Awesome. Hi, thanks for having me, Stashia. I just wanted to say that, I really appreciate this opportunity because the more we connect with each other, like different people, you get to have a whole different level of awakening. And I'm just super excited about this opportunity. So my name's Marcie, as she said, but I have been basically a very mainstream corporate 20-year designer, mom, all of this. And after losing an amazing soulmate in a very tragic way, I had this crazy awakening. And in that, I suddenly became a musician overnight, something I had no formal training in, but I was pushed to make songs, make music, and I didn't know what in the world I was doing. My partner that passed, John, he had actually promised me if anything ever happened to him, that he would communicate with me through music. I thought that just meant lyrics coming up in my head,
Right,
basic things. But
right,
suddenly
right.
I'm like, I'm a musician. I don't have any training. I don't know about this. And so I suddenly am able to make a song that is very much intuitively guided, completely genre bending. This is not meditation style music, but it's something that, going back to my childhood, I could hear what sounded like voices talking to me through instruments, instrumental music. There's no actual vocals in it. And so I started actually being guided by those sounds and those tones that felt like the energy of spirit. And I was able to then be led to how to filter this down, where I actually was able to hear John's voice audibly.
Wow.
And once I heard him, I dug in deeper. It was not very clear, but I knew his tone, shared it with his family, with other friends. And they're like, yes, that's John. How? I'm like, blown away. But I got completely obsessed with digging in deeper. And since then, now my music actually incorporates his vocals into it. And it's this kind of crazy activation track that has frequencies that bounce around in ways that our brain isn't used to hearing or processing. It's things that were out of range. Basically, spirit is talking all around us in nature and anything, but I'm amplifying all of that. So it's kind of
Okay.
the opposite of what musicians would do.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's been a pretty crazy journey.
So now, when you say that your music is genre bending, what exactly does that mean? And what are frequencies that people are not used to hearing? And how can one differentiate that from everyday music and hertz?
Yeah. So the thing is if you just take a second to listen, you will automatically feel and know that there's some frequencies that are different than anything you've heard in music. But the underlying tones, I'm guided to kind of write from left to right like a story. So there will be a first, I might take a loop of an instrument that is in a program, and it could be a bass line, it could be a piano. Every day it starts with something totally different, but it's the first one that I'm guided to. And then I just am guided to either play my own stuff out on different things or choose different loops and combine them and add different effects. It's kind of moving left to right, and maybe I'll come back and master it with a little bit of effects, but I know when it's over. And it's not even like I've planned, I want to make a 3-minute song or I want to make a rock song or any of that. So it might start off something mellow and then go into some little riff of hard rock, and then it might
Yeah.
go into hip hop. And now they've got me singing and talking and this stuff. And so I started rapping. I'm like, what am I doing here? So
What's happening?
it really goes all over the place. It's very ethereal with I guess, I don't know what you call it, but there's a flow where, it seems to make sense, even though you wouldn't put these sounds together or these
Together.
instruments together. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So now, how did you first know that you were speaking with John? Like, how did you immediately detect and say, "Oh my God, this is really happening"? And what
Yeah.
were some of the emotions that you felt immediately with that? Did it scare you? I mean, dig into that with me.
Yeah, so I guess I kind of need to go back on this to kind of give you an explanation that
Please.
while
Please.
I was married, my marriage started to fall apart, and we had my husband and I had split at the time. We ended up getting back together one last time, but in that time period, I was just kind of curious about, is there something else out there? Kind of feeling like you've been married forever, maybe you can't get anyone else. And I did some little psychic sketch online that popped up on Facebook. It was $15, and I'm sitting there waiting for them. I'm like, they're probably going to draw my husband because they've seen him on my Facebook page. So,
Right, right, right.
so it comes back and it is not my husband. And I just kind of put it aside. And I remember when I got back together with him, I showed him. He's like, well, that's not me. That must be your next man. Well, fast forward several years later, the marriage does end. I've just moved into this beautiful new home that was my dream home. And I was out one night with a friend, and I stopped by the local ale house. It's just a restaurant bar because it's one of the first times I didn't have the kids. And
Okay.
so I'm like, oh, I never go anywhere on my own, but I'm trying to kind of reinvent myself staying in a local town. I don't like to go out and be seen by myself, but I did. And as I
Right.
walked in, I mean, I was kind of John said, I looked like I was on a mission. but I just I caught eyes with him, and I felt like as I'm kind of coming in there confidently, like, yeah, whatever, I just like felt my whole body feel something I've never felt. And I felt like I was going to walk up to somebody that was like a lost love that I haven't seen in 20 years. And I sat down with him, but I was uncomfortable. So I sat like one stool over, kind of shaky. And he's like, it's kind of dead, but he's like, you can move over if you want. I don't even know what we started talking about first, but music was in that topic. And we were holding hands within 5 minutes. And I'm going,
What?
I'm not looking to date anybody. I don't even know. So we had this very, very, very strong connection. And I think part of that was that, you can free will things and go past a contract time. And I think I did that in my marriage. So that was a sign back then that like I had someone else to move on to, and this had to happen. So since we had such a condensed time period, our psychic connection was like nothing I've ever experienced in my life. And sadly, a week into dating him, maybe a week and a half, I was looking at him and I heard, this is real, enjoy it, but he's going to pass. And I'm going, he's younger than me. He seems healthy. Like, what in the hell?
Right.
So yeah, so I'm going through all that. And so we talked about that. So through our relationship, we actually discussed like if something did happen, and he would always ask me, promise me you'll be there for my son. If anything happens to me, like I know we have a purpose. And I happened to record him one night talking about how he believed God had a bigger purpose for us. And for whatever reason, he was like, why are you recording me? I was like, I don't know. It's just beautiful. And I feel like I'm going to make a song for you. Well, I had a custom song made for him, like right before he passed. I never knew I'd end up being a musician, but
Doing
so
that,
all
right.
this kind of led to this comfort and knowing. And
Wait. You had this, you were doing the music thing before you got to this.
No, I went on and paid somebody else, an artist that liked the style and I gave them concepts for lyrics, and they wrote a beautiful song for John. And so you can actually found that, but I'm like, I'm paying somebody for this. And I think it's so amazing. I'm like, it's crazy how he was able to make this in a few days. Again, I never knew what I did, but
You didn't
at this
know.
point. No. And so like, it was a beautiful tribute, and I made a nice little memorial video with it and everything. So anyway, leading up to his passing, like everything was just kind of coming together. He had just moved in, like it was just a beautiful time. And I'm feeling like finally my life is on the track that I really want it to be. And we got super sick for like the week and a half before. So we couldn't work, but we ended up spending all that time together. And it was like something beautiful about just not having to be separated, because I've never felt this way when he was at work or I was at work, or I'd work at home, but we'd be separated. We'd both be like, oh my gosh, it's so weird. I can't be away from you. And it felt like, it's not an unhealthy kind of way. It was just almost like our energy went together. We were both calm. When we were apart, our anxiety was more heightened, and we had that in common. So anyway, we've talked about all these things. And after he passed, he drowned, saving his son's life. I went and round to the other side of the island. I'm sorry, this gets me a little choked up at times, but I was on a boat on a private island with my friend's son, and the rest of them were all around in the beach side where this happened. So I came around to the aftermath, and I know that I was protected for a reason, that this had to happen. And if I had been there, I might not be here. There's just so many things that could have changed. But I remember reaching down to grab his arm, and I just knew he wasn't there, even though they were trying to resuscitate him. It was like he was gone. And I heard him from behind me telling me to go be with his son. And then I have a blackout, like I was almost protected till I was somehow boated off the island with his son on an ambulance. And it was like the most like traumatic but crazy experiment of my life. Like when I say experiment, I didn't think I could go through something like this, and it was testing me. So, I'm absolutely like, this is the lowest point in my life. And here I am, and I just need to be there for his son and try to get him through. And people have to come from like 2 hours away. So it's just me with him going through all this and trying to process it. So I got back home from the beach, and there was a bracelet that he wore, and he never took it off. He showed it to me the first week, and he bragged, because it's just got Roman numerals. I wear it now, but it's his son's birthday, and he never took this off. And somehow it was on my pillow when I got home, and legitimately no showers, nothing. He never took it off. And I instantly felt he was going to be there. And I instantly heard more intuition than I've ever had before, to just rest and to be present and to feel the pain. And that the more I actually went through my grief, it would open up this portal for me to hear what the purpose of all this was. And so in doing that, I really, really, really started to just hear more and more intuitively. That led me to multiple encounters with, I had a camera that he had left, he was going to charge to put back outside. And it was like the way he eased in was with orbs. The camera was in my room. It suddenly caught tons of orbs, and that felt safe. It just felt like a comforting light. And then I started seeing kind of with my naked eye. I'm like, this is crazy. I don't believe on this level. Like, I'm a total skeptic at this point. Right. Yeah. So, but it was like, there was like these ways of easing in to enhance the communication to help me trust my intuition. And that was the first one. And then it was that one day I'm on a Zoom meeting, kind of much like this. And I had some different filters I was playing with to help with background removal.
Oh,
And I was
yeah.
playing some music while I'm multitasking and working, and I hear his tone. Like, he's got a very interesting voice to me because for whatever reason, my dad had a Southern accent, and I've tried my best to not follow the suit of my parents having a Southern accent. For some reason, I equated it to ignorance, and I was like, I'll never date a man with a Southern accent. So John was
Right.
the first one who he could talk very clear, but then he'd have this little draw with certain stuff.
Was it? Is
He had,
he from the South?
yeah. So we're in North Carolina. I'm Raleigh. He was from Winston-Salem. But yeah, it was very much like the first time ever that I'm like, I actually like his voice, and I don't know why I'm drawn to this when it is everything. I like would stop dating a guy because their voice was bothering me. I'm not joking. I'm like, and I don't know how to. This one guy was getting his like PhD, and he was like super smart, clearly, but his voice made me think he was stupid, and I just couldn't do it. I know this is horrible. So yeah, so John has a very distinctive voice to me because that was such a big part. So I knew I heard him. I
Yeah.
mean, at that point, I just started like talking to God. I'm like, what is this? But I just,
Happening.
every minute I had, I started digging in where then I read something people talked about EVP devices with radio sweeping. And he said, you could start with that and you can clean it up. And I'm like, I looked online, no one can clean this stuff up. They're all like ghost hunting. I'm like, that's kind of scary. Like, I'm not a Ouija board person. I'm not doing this.
That's scary. I'm not ghost hunting.
Right, right. I'm like, and the association with that too is so like, ooh, taboo.
Yeah.
People think that you're out there like, again, Ouija board summoning the
Everyone
demons,
thinks that,
whatever.
yeah, that
Right,
you're like doing
right,
some demonic something.
right. But he kept
Right.
telling me we were making a new tech, and he pointed me to Edison, like, and I felt like I'm not now. It's like this additional audible in my head at this point, clairsentient, whatever, clairvoyant.
It's clairvoyant,
Yes,
clairaudient.
I know, and I'm all of the above, but I was not clairaudient, and so I keep like going back to what I used to be.
Right.
It's like he was the second voice that I could hear, like the God unified messages that I would get before, but now I've got this separate one that almost like has a John personality, jokes and everything in
Yes.
the messages.
Yes.
And even on the audible ones, he still has the same sense of humor, and he said some things that just have blown my mind. I'm like
Funny.
cracking up about. Yeah. So anyway, I'm getting a little bit. This is where I get distracted with myself going off the wrong direction here.
Same. It's okay. It's okay. We're just
So
free flowing.
yeah. But yeah, so I just got obsessed with trying to figure out the next thing, and I was just really listening and trusting my guidance. And I was actually like testing weird things because he said it's not going to be an EVP device like people use. It's not going to be anything that's already there. We're creating something, and it's got a bigger purpose having to do with humanity and getting you in front of people to explain some of the things about communication and the level of like the one single language that we can create through music. So, I'm like, I tried a million things. I was like using a hair dryer, all this stuff. And I tried all these filtering options from Adobe Audition, which is the only program I had for music, and I hadn't really used it before, but I'm used to the Adobe Suite. So it was the most comfortable one. I got like 10 different programs I was pointed to, and I'm just playing with stuff on there. I don't even know what the stuff does. I don't know what it means. In the meantime, I met this amazing man, Brian, who came to finish electrical work that John had not finished. And we started talking, and he believed in all the stuff that I was going through. And I felt like I couldn't talk to my friends about this. I felt like it was like, I have to have something super clear or they're going to think I'm just crazy.
Crazy. Right.
It was this whole, I don't want to, and also I don't want to scare people. And I was going through all that. So he actually believed that it could happen. And he told me about his experiences and that he happens to have an audio engineering background. So I show him how I'm doing all this stuff. And he's like, Marcie, like you're doing everything backwards. Like this is not what we do as musicians. Like you're trying to amplify everything musicians try to take out. But I'm like, that's what I'm being guided to do. And again, this is when I'm like, this is why I veered away from formal training in music, because I was supposed to learn it from spirit.
Your way.
Yes. And so, yeah, so I was just super excited. But of course, the first thing I'm like, oh my gosh, I've invented the telephone and we're just going to be able to talk to them. Like, you go through all kinds of stuff because nothing like this exists. And, I'm just got super excited. So there's this huge thing where I was just on fire for a while. And then things started to kind of go, okay, well, now we're going to shift down into reality because you need to bring this back to the 3D. There's a purpose for it, not for you to live up here in like La La Land where you're now, first just filtering sounds and machines and all kinds of stuff. And then now you're making music. It's like, you got to bring it back and be able to explain it. So that's when I was having probably the hardest struggles is in that time period, I lost my brother to an overdose. And unfortunately, I've had some struggles with my mom for years, but she's always been like somebody that I really, truly cared about. And I believe she was doing the best she could for my brother. but there became a codependency. And because she actually has real pain and he had taken her medicine, being totally candid, I found out she's an addict. And she was staying with me, and it was so eye-opening, just feeling the difference in the energy and realizing I had to kind of let go. So in this time period, I've had to let go of multiple people. I've also lost my career of 20 years. And ironically, after 18 years at IBM and almost 2 years at Amazon Web Services as a senior corporate leader, I have applied to like 40 jobs. I've never had to apply to jobs, but immediately I started just trying to at least apply so I could have income. And I realized like I'm being pushed. Do not do this. You can't do that anymore. That's not your thing.
Not for you.
I'm
Exactly.
like, I'm getting a message back saying you're not qualified for this job. I'm like, bro, I've done everything on that list and then some. Yeah.
I've
Or
been
the
there.
recruiters that are like, you have so much talent, and then they ghost
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And then they're
So
like, no. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so then I didn't even know, like, what am I doing with this? Is it the music or is it something else? And I've notebook upon notebook about things that this can change. And it's helping me understand things with neurodivergence, mental illness, and addiction. And a lot of the reasons I've had to lose or go through the experiences I have is so I've got firsthand experience to help other people to get through these things. But how this actually, he says, and I'm working with a neuroscientist now, and I've actually got an EEG machine coming because she did some tests on it, and it actually activates your cortex in a strange way that's not like other meditational music. And so I've been doing more of the science research of this, and then also getting into more of like the Bible backing of this, just to kind of tie everything together so it can make sense, because it's how do I communicate this to the mainstream? And so part of that is why the music is kind of hitting on all the mainstream genres that are popular. And I didn't even realize some of the things I've made sound like some other popular stuff that's coming out and parts of it. So it's just like this whole like the feelings are like up, down, lose this, learn that. And almost every time that I'm having one of these, like, it feels like I want to give up, I say I'm going to push through, and I go ahead and feel those feelings of pain, grief, whatever. And like the next day I wake up with some new answer. So it's just, it's a journey. That's the only thing I can say. It's a total journey. And I don't know where the end destination is, but right now I've been pushed into this love evolved music and super excited about seeing where it goes.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is a lot of people that I have connected with recently, we're doing this kind of pioneering thing, right? Of where we're being called to do things that don't exist. You know, and kind of bridging spirit world with physical world. And the things, it's rough, and it's a lot of it is this taboo stuff where people look at it and they're like, that's, you know, like, you know, you know what I mean? But honestly, behind closed doors, a lot of these people are very intrigued, very curious about it. And more people as we go forward are going to be curious about it and wanting to get involved with this. But I think the closest thing, and you touched on this earlier, that's out there kind of like that is like, do you ever get this compared to having like a spirit box? You know, people saying like how spirit boxes work, and if so, how can you differentiate this between what a spirit box does?
So for people that don't know, when I mentioned EVPs earlier, that is a spirit box. And for people who don't know that, it's basically like AM, FM radio waves that are being quickly swept through. I've done all my research on this, and people have not understood, you know, what are they using when they think they hear a word from a ghost? Because typically this is used at some like haunted mansion, and they're like, oh, I heard someone say, help me. So it's like, it's got this negative and dark association with it, which is what scared me when I did research on these things. And I did test it for a minute, and I can take that and still clean and get John's voice, but there were other voices coming through. He said, we're building a secure line. And so by whoever's energy is going into it, the messages are actually created for whoever I make a song for. If it's just for me, they're usually just me tuning my higher self in and being able to be more confident in what I'm doing. But I have a very different patent pending process right now that goes through 50 steps of literally them creating their voices from the music. So you can actually hear, and now we're at the point, you can actually hear John flowing. There's like words you'll hear where he's like rapping. He's following the flow of my music versus it just being the talking that I got. The initial talking I got when I did the EVP, though, he did state we are building the bridge. We're doing what we promised his son. Like, these are the messages. We're coding the new earth. And he's told me we're going to help the kids. And one line he said, I'll just let everyone know. He said, anything done for the children will be done by the Father. So anything we're doing to help this new generation who is going to come in, and they're going to all be on this crazy different spectrum of neurodivergence, because we're unfamiliar with how they are connected to spirit. And so this is a big shift for them in terms of us finding ways to help get the messaging out and teach them like how these kids think so that they can get the right kind of nurturing instead of being put into a special needs type of
Special.
scenario. Yes.
Exactly.
Right. No,
Exactly that.
no, they're not special. They are the next
No,
generation. And
we
this
are
is
no. I'm
becoming
like,
more and
no,
more.
no. Yeah.
Right.
You're like, no,
Right.
no. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
So
crazy because I have heard this as well about a lot of the neurodivergent kids. And I don't know how old you are, but I just turned 32 and I'm just now realizing that a lot of us, I'm like, hey, a lot of us were just really spiritually gifted.
yes, absolutely. That is the message I've gotten consistently, is that all of the things that we medically diagnose have to do with the spectrum of your spirituality and you're remembering what we're actually here for and
What
knowing
right.
source and knowing like that we're
Who
in
and what you
an
are.
illusion. I mean, it's really hard when John said, I feel sorry that you're all still in the game. And I'm like, really? This is all a game? Like, I'm like having to have this revelation because it's so real. And
Yeah.
what makes it so real is the emotions we're given here. Now,
Hmm.
emotional regulation is the only thing we have control over, right? But
Right.
we need nurturing and we need nurturing environment and other people, or it's really hard to learn that emotional regulation. And so,
Absolutely.
that's where people go off the deep end. And certain mental illnesses, like I've been given very strong messages about that I could basically break down and define each of these mental diagnoses and what it means in terms of their spiritual connection and nurturing or support versus not. And then the neurodivergent type is, again, just what we don't understand because we're all on a spectrum. There's just a range we've called normal. And then anything
Right.
slightly outside of that normal, it's like, they're special. There's something off. There's something different, whatever. And people might use nice wording for it and try to make it sound more positive, but they still don't understand
But you don't
the
understand. Right.
tie to this is that. And so there's also the addiction factor that I've had to encounter with my family. And that's for me to see how much like these people are usually some of the most spiritually connected people, some of the
They
smartest,
don't
most
want to feel
brilliant
it.
people. And their biggest fear is pain. So
Hmm.
in avoiding pain, they self-medicate to the point that, that's all that they know. And then they've got this baggage of stuff anytime they come out of it. The reason
Yeah.
most people relapse is that it's not the drug and how it physically makes them feel. It's
It's
what emotionally blocks them.
yeah.
So they don't have to feel. And when they come to, sure, there's withdrawal factors, but the people that get over that and they're feeling physically better that still go back, it's because they're having to then look at everything that they've
Everything.
done. And it's that whole unraveling and it's so painful. So
Yes.
I'm feeling all of this. And this is the biggest thing I'd like to get out there is just how much this can help people understand all of us in our unique makeup and like accept it in a different way that actually ties us together as one. And we're just different parts of us are struggling.
So say somebody has addiction or is struggling with grief or is struggling with anxiety or any kind of mental illness or emotional struggle, what is something that you would recommend? Why would you recommend this to them? How would it help them immediately? What would be the thing that they could say, oh my God, this has literally been the game changer?
Yeah. So initially, again, playing around with this because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm trying to figure things out. I
Right.
got excited. I went down one path and by the way, had to completely rebrand after I was realizing that that wasn't right. I'm like, I put so much time into this and design is my background, but it's so hard for me to design for myself because I'm going to
Exactly.
scrap everything. So
Yeah.
as I was building this, at first I was focused more on the fact that I suddenly have these stronger mediumship abilities. And I was able to offer services to several people where I was able to channel and then create a song for that person that helped them have a connection with their loved ones that passed away. Instantly, they would suddenly hear the tone. They're like, is Scott in there? Or so I'm like, I don't know what Scott sounds
I
like,
don't know what
but
that is.
I'm like, John and this other spirit guide who introduced herself as Vanessa. Actually, supposedly she didn't have the name Vanessa, but they said something about NASA. I called her Vanessa because my other friend thought we heard that. So she goes by it now. But that's just another off topic one. But John says we're gatekeepers. So he and Vanessa are going to be present on some level, sometimes one more than the other. And like Brian, who's helping me on this side, it's like we're balancing, but we're gatekeepers. So if I'm
Right.
coming and I bring someone forward for this session, I saw instantly, like, I didn't know that I even had this ability, but all of a sudden their loved one is coming through and it's like being passed on message wise through John's voice that I've already trusted. So it's not some
Right.
scary direct
Some
channeling.
random person. Yeah,
Right. I'm
exactly.
like, well, John
Or
says, yeah, yeah. I'm like, John says your boy is jamming out with him right now. So it's more like we're having a conversation at the bar. We're having
hanging
the like
out.
a
Yes.
friendship thing. And so I call it more of like a connection, because I don't like this idea of mediumship. I didn't want to go forward with that, but
Exactly.
I was able to do that and make these songs. And these people instantly came back and they were like, I can't believe this. Like, I felt like I couldn't connect with this person for XYZ. Usually it's like a tragic loss, an unexpected one, something like that, where people didn't get the closure. And this
Right.
opens that back up. Now, this is where I offer like coaching, because now I've got tactics to help people go through what those emotions might feel like after they've been exposed to this. But they all feel like, they've said it's like a familiar stranger when they're connecting with a loved one. So I moved on from that, because I was like, this would exhaust me to deal one-on-one with bringing people
Exactly.
forward. But the
Exactly.
people that I'm doing that for, I've heard are part of the soul family that need
Right.
some closure. And so I'm being
Exactly
pointed
that.
to them
Exactly.
specifically to even just do this for free to help them tap in and then, come in to help support our cause.
Exactly.
The thing that I started learning is that when I'm making this music myself, I understood technically the idea of a higher self. But again, I stayed away from spiritual things because it was all the woo woo, like, hippie and the like just weird people to me. Their energy was just off, and it didn't resonate with me. And that's where I've been told, again, this is like, we're trying to bring like corporate to consciousness. We're trying to bring like mainstream acceptance and understanding, so people that are feeling these things can understand what it
Yes.
is. So
Yes.
I started realizing when I would make this music, it was like all of my anxieties would be removed. Like all of a sudden, I was just able to answer my own questions, all the things that I started maybe having doubts about. As soon as I'm making the music, I have answers, and I feel like I'm more confident in myself. And so honestly, when people talk about higher self, that might sound weird to people, but it's really just you as you
It's
are,
just
where
you.
you
Yes.
erase. It's just you blocking out all these limiting beliefs.
Right.
And
Yes.
so I knew that like the biggest thing that this can do is this music can help with those energy blockers and limited beliefs for people. And so if you have a custom song or you just listen to my music, when you're going through your emotions, you're supposed to feel them. They're supposed to have a time and place, but you can turn on one of these songs. And I suggest just one, because they've called it like infinite loops. And so you just play one on repeat. It's like a hypnotic state that
Okay.
just probably listen to the same song for 20 minutes, and you'll just start to feel like all those worries go away. So it's something that not only it might open up this and you start to feel more things, but you can return back to your song, and it gives you that, it's like that counseling, that therapy for you to keep going
Okay.
when things get rough. And so
Okay.
that's the thing I've noticed. People have, felt it like just really intense emotions. They said, I'm feeling things that I have never felt before, or I haven't felt in a long time. So it's reopening parts of your brain in ways that nothing else I've ever experienced does. I also avoided yoga and meditation. I can't sit silently. I can't get my head quiet. Like if I was going to exercise, I wanted to do like body pump or go on a long walk.
Yeah.
I like sit and meditate. No, I'll talk to God. And I, like, as a kid, and I would get confused halfway through my prayer. Like, but I would feel, I was like going through these formalities of the way I was told to do things. And I was like, this
Right.
just takes me there, and I
Yes.
don't have to do anything, just
Yes.
listen. And so
Yes.
that's what's amazing, is like, it's really helped me actually understand what people achieve from those other things, that it's great for them, but it wasn't
Yeah.
for me. And I think
Yeah.
that's the problem, is there are people that are so different in how they are learning is, and all of this.
Yes.
And so this is giving people that they like the normal mainstream music, but they want to have this feeling, and they don't want to be sitting in like low quality, like,
Trying to.
right. Yeah. Trying to
Yeah.
summon whatever. Yeah. I can't get down with that.
Can't
So
do it.
that's what
Yeah.
this is. That's what this is supposed to be doing, is kind of bridging that gap for people.
I feel like I mean, that's a huge bridge of the gap for especially, and I feel like I keep going back to this because it's literally me, where the ADHD of trying to,
Mhm.
I can't, like, I can't sit here, like you just said, and just be like,
Right.
I can't do it. I need to
Mm.
get the information and go. And that is a huge game changer for people that
Yeah.
can, immediately it puts you in the kind of the flow state
Yes.
of thing, and I mean, Marcy, that's a huge deal. I don't know
Yeah.
if you're familiar. There was a project that like the CIA did of trying to use frequencies to essentially kind of skip over getting into having to do all these things, go through all the death, the traumatic events
Yep.
to get people to have this activation and essentially only
Yes.
be able to reach like lucid dreaming state.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
this is this is like
Yes.
beyond that.
Yes. Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
I know. And that's what I mean. That's where it's like, it's mind blowing. There's days where I'm sitting here going, I am running out of my savings. Thank God I saved enough to be able to not work for a while. But
right.
I'm watching everything dwindle, and I'm like, am I going to be homeless next to? And then I
Then
keep going back. I'm like, but it feels that way because I'm having to learn how to live on limited things and let go of everything, because we don't own anyone or own anything here. The only thing we own are our emotional regulation, our own self. So it's kind of making me focus on accepting that no matter what I lose, it's not necessarily going to be that I lose everything, but the trend has felt that way. But it's that I need to accept that if I did, I'm still taken care of. And so I'm thinking in a whole different way. But that is where, when I start to get down, I'll go work on another track, or I'll just listen to my own music. And even though it's like upbeat, rapid, but you can meditate to this. It's the weirdest thing. It's like relaxing, even though it's upbeat. And if you want to get something done really fast, play this stuff on your loudspeakers while you're doing dishes, cleaning the house or something. You'll be like, man, I just did all that in 10 minutes. That felt like an hour. But like, it's amazing. You've saved time. I don't know how, but it takes you out of like it shifts time. Yeah.
Yeah. That.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out
the world between worlds.
Yes. Yeah. So, and I'm like, all of this is just, it's like I said, it's been wild, and I'm just trying to figure it out as I go. And I know there's so much more, but it's kind of getting this foundationally understood and all that is so essential right now, because it really can help people if they understand it. If they go into it and they don't understand, they might just start to have these feelings and they're going to struggle a lot more. And so the point of this is to try to educate people and be that support system, even through some like group sessions and some workshops, to help people understand what they start to experience from this. And again, for them to get to that point without having to go through a loss like I did. I mean, I would really hope if I'd gone through that trauma after knowing this, it wouldn't have been as traumatic. It's still, I very much grieve his presence. I wish he was here in person. I miss that. But there's a whole new different type of relationship that I have now and an understanding. But I would have done anything to know this before going through that pain. And so if I can help anybody, then I've done my job.
Have things changed with your perspective on death in life at this point? Like, are you able to see death in the spirit world differently now? Like, do you know
100%.
Yeah. Tell me about that. Tell me how you thought death in life was prior to you experiencing any of this, and how has this shifted now? How are you feeling about it now? How do you view it now?
So the first close loss I had was my grandmother when I was in middle school. And I just remember it was like something that really felt heavy and dark to me. And I missed her, but I didn't feel connected to her. I lost my dad about 10 years ago. And that's where it first started to give me like a chance to open up, but not quite on this level. But I was suddenly getting more messaging from him and some similar things to this. And I felt his presence. And that felt comforting to me. But I still was kind of just like, I didn't see the full picture of it. After going through this, I'm like, I miss people that are not here to go do something fun with them, to get an actual hug from them. But I don't grieve the ones who've passed over, because I know that they've got a full perspective. I know that they're always here. They're literally like, I don't have to like call and wonder if I'm going to get voicemail. I can just tune in myself at any point and they're like, we're here anytime you want. Sometimes it feels like a little bit of pressure because they never go away, but they do actually, They do give you space. I have told people you can ask them for space and they will give it to you. They'll respect that. But there's like always this feeling, well, they're always there. And if you love them, you want to connect with them all the time, but you can't get too far into that. So finding balance, like anything, this whole life is about balance. But the gist of it is, now I'm going through loss of having to let go of friends and family members who are still here living, because they do not understand, or they do not energetically vibe with what I'm doing. And that is what I grieve much more. I cry every day for the people that are here, that there's nothing I can say. And they're just some people that aren't ready for change. This is scary. I completely understand, because I was one of those people. If someone told me this was going on, I would be skeptical. So that's why I've done crazy research on this to make sure that, there's irrefutable proof for people that this is a positive thing. And this is not something that is like, again, if people think this is from demons, well, if the demons are only telling me to help the world, then is the demon really a bad thing? I think it's just the dark and light within us. And it's not so much like an external force that would cause that, but people have their own demons in their head, and they might feel and apply their own view to things with that. So anyway, it's been an interesting roller coaster of emotions. But
and that's what people in general with this, there's been a shift on Earth, of people who, I give it the Flintstones versus the Jetsons theory, kind of, where, I don't know if you've ever heard of this theory, where the Flintstones and Jetsons lived at the same time. the same era, like the exact same time they
Interesting.
coexisted. But the Flintstones were the ones who chose to not essentially spiritually awaken and ascend, and the Jetsons were the ones that did, but then they just lived above. And it's kind of like when you don't have that energetic resonance any longer with people, that's when they start to kind of fall away. And it doesn't matter what you do or say, everything that you're doing, they're repelled against. They
Right.
don't want to be a part of it. They don't want to participate. They're not going to
Right.
support you. And even if you've done absolutely nothing wrong, it's just the fact that you are in your divine purpose and life,
Yes.
and you're doing what you're called to do, and they've chosen to not.
Right.
And it's just triggering for them.
You know, it's ironic that you brought up the Flintstones and the Jetsons, because I loved both those shows, and I would watch them like on TBS or something back in the day when we only had like certain channels.
Well, you
So I would
had
flip
like 5.
they would be on at the same time on 2 different channels or something. I would flip between them, and then I got super excited because that movie came out that was the Flintstones Meet the Jetsons. I don't know if you ever saw that one, but they actually have a movie. So if you haven't, based on you saying that, as a kid, I loved that movie. I got so excited about the concept of them bridging that
The
gap.
world.
And you just pulled this together, and I am covered in goosebumps.
Listen, man, I need telling you, I really do these things. Like, I mean,
Yeah, I
like
know.
this
I
is a
know. Yeah, there's no coincidences anymore, man. Everything's just like,
no, not at all. Not
and the
at all. But
synchronicities lately are intense, and it's what keeps me going.
like,
One of the things,
what are your synchronicities?
well, I mean, everything starting with the story I've told you with the soulmate
Right.
sketches. Like I suddenly started to see how this unravels, but pretty much anytime I'm talking to someone, something they'll say, just like what just happened right now. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm in the right place. It's not just that I feel energetically like this is the right place, but there's like
Right.
stuff that comes out of people's
Visible.
mouths that it's like, it's so obvious. One thing I've learned, I don't watch a lot of TV. I kind of have backed
Me
away
neither.
from it, but
Yeah.
a certain good series, I always like sci-fi. And now I'm like, I'm living this heavenly sci-fi movie myself right now. But
Yes.
my current boyfriend, Brian, hadn't seen Fringe. I don't know if you've seen it, but I
What's it
started
called?
Fringe. It's a sci-fi movie, and it's got like basically every sci-fi type thing in it. But it's not like it's people things. It's like time travel and alternate universe type stuff.
Okay.
It's something I highly recommend to anyone because I watched it before I was awakened, and I just thought it was a really good, entertaining show. Like it got to all these cool things that like it was just fun concepts. I've gone back and rewatched it and realized that the whole premise behind it is around awakening. The whole thing underneath is awakening, and there's like a drug that they give these kids early on to have them actually like activate later in life, and it's called cortexiphan. And I've been pointed in my messages, some of the messages I've gotten audibly from John, suddenly I'll hear those lines that he said, because it comes through like puzzle pieces, like some weird line. I'm like, he's like, remember nanobots? And I was like, what are we talking about, nanobots? And then there's a line on the next episode I watch. So he's referencing like, pay attention to this in shows. So like I'm starting to watch some stuff, just little things like that. And I suddenly am seeing like, I didn't see any of this at all. It's kind of like the way that subliminal messaging is put in children's cartoons, which I kind of hate some of that now, but like you don't, the kids don't understand it, so they don't see it. It's how we can watch the same thing and see different things because everyone's perspective is slightly different. But I highly recommend. They're about to actually, ironically, since we started rewatching, they're about to release season 6 of it, and I'm super excited because it's been since 2009 since I started watching this, and all of a sudden they're coming out with season 6 as I'm rewatching it.
This is what's happened with the few shows that I watch, and it's been like, mine is weird. Mine's like anime, like Sailor Moon, like things of this nature, things that I've not seen in forever. And just like a year and a half ago, they released a new 2-series movie that was like specific to what it is that I'm doing, and I'm like, what? And then again, being guided to watch that. I don't watch Netflix ever, you know, but and immediately upon pressing play and watching this, I was like, what is happening?
Total aha moments. Yeah.
Literally.
Just and so insane. So when you're tuned into it, and they just kind of keep compounding. I can see everything. For a little while I couldn't watch stuff because everything felt like it was a joke. I started, because I was seeing it for what it was, it felt like these movie scripts were written exactly for me. Or in the audio programs I've been working in, some of the names of the filters are like silly things related to John or his son, like the things they've named these filters. I'm going, what? Or it's like it's just over the top where everything feels it was like constructed. And so the thing is, it was constructed. So we're just remembering like all these things that were being put in front of us. And the other one is that the programs will suddenly have new updates. And that new update
Exactly.
is
Exactly. And
exactly
then the
what I
new
need to go to
update
the
will
next
have
level.
yes,
Yes. Yes.
yes, yes.
It's,
Maybe
it's a,
you
yes,
understand it. I'm
I
trying to
do.
tell you, this is
Yeah.
exactly what and not only that, but it's like every time that you level up
Hmm.
your world and perception, it levels up with you. And there's new
Right.
Easter eggs and things that are placed into
Yep.
your reality from whatever it is that you're going through from your guides. Literally, it's like
Yep.
your mind controls what you see within your reality. And
Exactly.
your guide in God's Lord's universe will put in stuff in
Hmm.
whatever it is that they're guiding you to watch
Yep.
in there specifically for you to recognize and see, like signs, like road signs that say this way, or you know what
Right.
I mean, like
Oh yeah.
this.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And it happens the other way. It happens the other way with blocking you too. So you'll see
Yeah,
the ones that are
exactly.
leading you places. And again, I mean, like this is just now this is all just normal to me, but I know it's like so foreign to some people that
Well,
aren't
yeah,
tuned into this. But one of the things that they taught me is 3 is the truth. And obviously there's some significance to the number 3. But what I
exactly.
was having happen is just like jumping on this podcast today, there's been other people I was trying to meet with. And some of it was more ego than being spiritually led, and they'll let me know, or if it's just not the time, like where
Right.
I'm so like loyal to making sure I commit to things and I stick to them that I would
Same.
show up even when I didn't feel right about it, and they were showing me
Same.
not to do that.
Right.
So if you've had a tech glitch lately, sometimes it is just a glitch, but
Right.
if the same thing you're trying to do is blocked, like the screen crashes, the audio goes out 3 times, you're supposed to just pause. It's not saying that it's not meant to be, it's just not right then. So like
Nothing.
there's things like that that I'm learning that help me as like a guideline, because I'm the type that I'm like, I'm a problem solver. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to
I'm
fix
gonna
this
get
thing.
this done.
Right. But so I had to have a limit, which was like, if you try it the third time and it works, that's true. You're good.
Done.
It was just, but when it's even done that, where I've had the 3 things, it's made me realize it's time to change whatever I was talking about. Not that the
Yes.
conversation is not supposed to happen, but
Right.
maybe we shift gears. So
Right.
it's been interesting just to kind of start to learn to really pick up on all the signs. The other thing that John has mentioned audibly is that this is like an escape room, and the chances of one person doing this and getting all the clues in the room is
Mhm.
like next to none. They might get
Right.
some of them, but they're never going to put them together. And that's why when you have more people in one of those escape room things, the different ways we process problem solving is that
Mhm.
people go off and we're like, I'm going to go work over here while you work over there. You're not
Yes.
following each other around, right? You're not like
Yes.
holding hands. You're
Yeah.
doing separate things at the same time. And then you
Yeah.
come to the middle and you go, well, I found this and I think it
I got
means
this.
that. And you bring it together, and then you get a key and you unlock the next part. So
Right.
there's a huge thing about that's where we need to have these like soul puzzles is what I call us.
Absolutely. The puzzle
Yeah.
pieces in the oracle deck that I made, there is a card that I made that says the bigger picture, and the picture that I made for it is it's the world, but it's all made out of puzzle pieces.
That's awesome.
And it's literally this,
Yeah.
is the being led to people within your soul group that are meant to help along the path that have those different puzzle pieces.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
Craziness.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's exciting stuff when I'm talking to more people that are connected to me. But one of the things I just want to mention is the struggles that I have gone through is in letting go of people that you can see that it's been an unhealthy relationship, but maybe it's your family since birth, and it's really hard to let go of
Yes.
those patterns. And then I started struggling with, okay, I understand I'm supposed to, and I was trying to ignore my feelings about it. And
Yeah.
you're not ever being asked to not grieve. Some people think, well, I'm supposed to, you get all these messages like when you start hearing about spirituality, it's like you need to keep your vibration up. And I'm like,
And don't worry. Don't
right. But
feel it.
I'm
Right.
like, you don't keep your vibration up by ignoring those
Or
things. You have to
feeling.
actually feel them and
Feel
grieve them,
it.
but leave it there and say, okay, I'm going to give myself this length of time to do this or feel
Exactly.
this. Or if it's coming on, I'm just going to stop and allow it. But then I'm going to return to rising back up. One of
Exactly.
the best things that I keep telling myself, and I don't do a lot of mantra type stuff at all, but I was realizing that no matter what, you are sending energy out to people when you think of them. And it doesn't
Yeah.
even matter, good or bad, you are keeping a connection. And so you should feel those feelings and release those in time periods. But basically, if you want somebody to come back around, if it is somebody that, like, I'm saying, like, I'm struggling with my kids right now and their distance and understanding, the more I'm thinking about that, it's like, I guess, if a dog is in front of you and you run after it, what's it going to do? It's going to run from you. You're like, but come here, I want to pet you. But if you
Yeah.
sit back and you call to it and you like
Let it
take,
go.
you can come to me if you want, I'm over here, then they're up in
Hmm.
your face. And so like
Exactly.
thinking that way. And so I repeat to myself over and again, I am bringing my energy back to me. And
Mhm.
it's like an instant stop of like, okay, suddenly I was thinking about my middle school teacher and something that happened in my old job and what happened with my mom yesterday. Like, and it's like, I start having those like crazy
Too much.
thoughts and I'm like, I'm bringing my energy back to me. And it's just this
Yep.
focused thing to center. And so whatever works for you, it is very important that you realize you have the power to bring your energy back instead of pushing it onto other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you feel like that has been a freeing thing for you, being able to just let go metaphorically?
Yeah.
And not in the sense of letting go of like letting go of caring. That's not it. But like letting
Right.
go energetically of the
When
outcome.
Yeah, so I'll say this has been like a roller coaster, but I think that it's not just going up and down. It's going up with some down, but you're constantly moving up. But it
Yeah.
is like it's been hard for me because I was here and I was such a sensitive person, but that's where I think
Yeah.
people took advantage of that at certain times or didn't understand me because I was
Yeah.
almost willing to like do anything for anybody and I was not putting myself first. I felt
First.
that I'd be
Exactly.
selfish, etc. So like all of that has been a lot for me to let go of more than anything because I
Yeah.
felt like I was doing a good job as a human, that I would continue to give love and care for people, but I was realizing I was not putting a boundary in place. I was made to
Wow.
feel boundaries were a bad thing and that, you always had to
Exactly.
be there for people, even if they weren't treating you well and like you could
Exactly.
work through it. So that has been very freeing to understand how this feels to let go and
Mhm.
be at peace. And what's been weird is my brain has wanted to go to something where I'm wanting to tell a friend about how this bad stuff's happening. And sometimes I've done it when I'm having a hard time, like a work in progress. But
Right.
there's the thing that sometimes stops me and helps me to go, but Marcie, you don't actually feel that way you used to feel. Like you're not actually panicked. You understand it. So do you really need to go tell people? Because that's just going to give more energy to it. And so
Right.
it's been a challenge. But when I'm able to completely let go, I feel great about it. And ironically, the song I made yesterday is called Letting Go because it was this realization about exactly what you just asked. So,
Yes.
yeah.
That's I just feel like that's great. And that's a place that I think a lot of people have been. There's also this dynamic of people go through called the narcissist empath
Yeah.
pattern and cycle where the empath is always, we just want to help and we just want to give and we just want to,
Yeah.
and we want to be there for people and not having those strong, firm boundaries. It's like, we're the sole light in the darkness and
Hmm.
and it'll always
Right.
be that thing where darkness is attracted to light and light is attracting darkness. That's just what it
Well,
is.
interestingly, you mentioned that because I went down the path of like, again, it was a labeling thing that became very strong that people really jumped on this. That's a narcissist, that's an empath.
Right.
Same way as the neurodivergence versus normal brain waves, whatever.
Neurotypical. Yeah.
We're on a spectrum. We all have a little bit of those things in us, but it's a matter of like how much we rely on that one side or the other. Like everything I'm
Mhm.
getting is like we have light and dark in us, and we need one to
Absolutely.
appreciate the other.
You
But
have to have
so
both
you can't be just all light. And if you hadn't
at
gone through
all.
the darkness, you wouldn't see things in the light way, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, and so that's the biggest thing is like I kind of again I don't like any of these labels. That's the biggest thing I'm getting from my messages from this is that we can't be so quick to label people.
Mhm.
That's what actually creates the divide. So it's more like
Right.
understanding those unique things. And even with the services I'm offering, these are songs that are custom tailored to you and your energy. Or this is a counseling session. I'm not going to call it counseling, but coaching, where I'm going to meet with somebody and I'm going to customize exactly what they're trying to get out of things. Where are their weak points? I've got a whole exercise that I'm going to give somebody before I agree to take them on as a client. If they don't want to do that self work, I'm giving them something
That
that's going to help them no matter
that
what. Like if they do it though, it's going to help them no matter what. And it's a free activity that does work, but that tells me that they're committed. Some people like want the money up front. And I kind of have been like, do I want to invest in that or that? Like if I had a week trial of something, then I probably would know, but it's
right.
blindly investing that's kind of scary. So I'm
Mhm.
giving some people some initial tools, the music and a way to listen to it and an exercise to kind of figure out what your vision is and break down some of your limiting beliefs. And if a
Right.
person completes that, then they schedule to work with me and I'm going to help them on their goals and their journey. And that exercise helps us lay out exactly what they need. And they're going to be the
Exactly.
ones who determine that versus me saying, I offer this kind of coaching or that kind of coaching.
Yes.
Like you can't box anything in. So this
Right.
very much is like about identifying the individuals so much
Mhm.
that you actually realize you're connected. The weirdest
Correct.
part is the labels create division of groups.
It's
It's
bad.
it's
Have you felt that within creating your business? Because whenever I created mine, that's the thing that I've and still currently struggling with, when people are like, "So what are you? What is it that you
Right.
do
Right.
really?" Like, and I'm just me, you know?
Right. Right.
I'm just me, and everybody wants so badly for me, like, "So are you a witch?" "No, I'm not that." Like, "Oh, so then you're this," and I'm just me, and I
Right.
just have abilities. "Well,
Yeah.
what abilities do you have?" "I just have I'm directly connected to source, that's it. That's what I do." "Well, what services do you offer?" "Man, do you need"
We're part of the collective council. You're a collective council member. There you go.
That
But that's it. Like you can't go further than that. You're like, I'm here for
that's
a
it.
purpose for us all. And
That's it.
mine is unique. And I
That's
see
it.
you as unique.
Yes.
Yep.
And but this thing of coming to me like, "So then what is it that you offer?" Like, "So what are you
I think it's important though that people, this is where I've struggled, is how I first went out with this when I first discovered it, and I branded myself and I spent all this time. I even paid someone to help me. And then I was basically being told, scrap it, scrap it, scrap your website. Literally in audible messages from John, he's like, not that website. I'm like, okay. And so I knew the music I needed to focus on and really get my brand straight. And so I started working on the side, but I found when I finally listened and started building that, even though I had to spend more money on a different site, started building my site, I'm like, it was flowing through me. And I've been like blocked
Mhm.
on doing design because again, I've done this for so many years and I've struggled so much with the first brand that I
Yeah.
was like, how am I going to do this again? But it was this more vibrant, colorful, like feeling of my energy going
Yeah.
into this. And
Yeah.
I was super excited when I was doing it. And I was like, okay. So, I've heard many times also he's like, you don't listen. I'm like, it's hard sometimes. Like we're struggling with like, oh,
The
that's a
human
lot of
self
work.
and the
Right. Or
divine
like,
self.
yeah, like, well, I had a plan for this. Well, no, your plan doesn't matter. Like
Your
scrap
plan
it.
sucks. Like
Right. But once you listen, then you find out that you actually are inspired and you do more.
Yes.
And so with all this, I'm like, I'm loving talking to you, but I'm getting distracted even because I'm so excited about the synchronicities of like things we've already discussed.
Everything.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited about seeing where the new brand goes. But I think it's important that people understand what you can offer them. So that doesn't mean you need to give yourself a specific title. Right? That doesn't mean that, you're having to like make your niche perfectly clear that this is all you offer, all you do. Sure, if you offer services, you can explain them. But I think what people are probably asking you in that situation is they're coming to you and they want you to be able to do something for them. But because it's so different, how do they know what
Exactly.
that is? So I think getting to a point where if you think about the people that have been asking, ask them, put it back on them, because this is what I'm doing with my coaching is what is it you are looking for help with? And that's where this exercise that I give people as a first trial, they have to go figure that out and basically put their vision together and remove all the limiting
Bring back.
beliefs first. And so they bring it back to you. Then you're like, well, now we can discuss. These are the
Right.
things I can help you with, and this is how I can help you. So if I give you any tip today, I think that might help
That
stop that.
there.
Yeah.
Literally that there. Like, what
Yes.
is it that you need help with?
Right. If you don't know what you're coming to me for, like obviously there's something that is drawing them to you. But
That
again,
led you here.
how many of us actually know what we want? We're
Right.
stuck in programming and it's the next thing.
Right.
And how do you make the next dollar? And where are you going to live? And the amount of technology and bills and things to keep up with, like we don't take time to figure that out. So,
Yes.
I think that's just a key thing is like put the onus back on the person and tell them I can probably help you with anything you come to me with. I'll tell you how once you tell me what it is you need help with.
That Marcie has cracked the code of literally this. I mean, it's the most repetitive question I get asked all the time. And I'm like,
Well, there's your ticket.
that's the
Anything that you're getting,
rebuttal. Yeah.
any of those things that keep coming up from people, that is one thing I have learned is I will get certain patterns of people that reach out to me to ask questions.
Hmm.
And there seems to be a trend with what the questions are. And when I hear something again, I try to pay attention to that three. If I've heard three people kind of hint at something, it means I'm not doing a good job of conveying something. And I'm not going to just be like, well, I'm just me. Like, I'm not saying like that's bad that you
Right.
did that because I
Right.
feel that way. But I'm like,
Right.
man, you know what? Maybe this doesn't make sense. And as a lead designer and manager, I would always ask my designers that were working with me to be extra clear on explaining things. Because think about it, like any industry you're in, you know it so well that you're using an acronym for every other word and you're
Right.
spitting things out, but you need to like write or articulate things in ways that is like, okay, if I knew nothing about what I'm doing, what could I say that would help me go?
Right. Right.
And so even user testing that, like getting a statement together and showing to several people, like, do you understand what I'm saying here or what I mean by this is a
Yes.
good starting point. But yeah, I think that that's one of those things, if you're getting those messages ever, it's like the thing I've been told is stop. This is something you need to focus on because it's actually going to block you from more glory and more fun and more light that you could be spreading. And they're showing you that pattern for a reason.
Right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's exactly how it was, like, whenever I was making my website, it was the same thing, like,
Yeah.
how do I describe everything? And I did, and I waited until I got exactly how I needed to describe
Yeah.
things, and now even when people ask me, I'm like, I was like, "You know what AAA is?" Like, they're like, "Oh, yeah," like, for the when your battery dies. Like, "Yeah." I was like, "I'm like the AAA service for your soul." And they're like, "Purpose it?"
Look, analogies and rhyming stuff is like all spirit talk. I don't know how many times I'm channeling this poetry type stuff, and it's like, but that's why I've got all these lyrics, and they're making me sing, and I'm like, well, I was just coming through. Everything
What is it?
rhymes. I don't know, but on a off note for that, the funny part was the night before John passed, we had talked about how we both hated the idea of public speaking. We would never do it, and it was like
Yes,
a month earlier. We had tried to go to some Bible study just with like other couples to kind of meet some other people that had some faith because I wasn't really connecting with people like my friends weren't necessarily even where John and I were, but they
right.
were doing like a game night when we walked in, and he just like, I didn't come here for this. I came here to do more Bible study stuff and learn. And they want to play charades, and he started having panic. He went to the bathroom. It was like this whole funny incident, and he was just like, I don't want to go back there. Like the
Right.
idea of being put on stage and having to play charades and give
Having
clues to
to.
people, and I'm like, now we are playing charades every day with the way that spirit speak is. He's like,
Literally
here's the line,
the
guess
irony.
this. We're playing charades, and he's telling me I'm going to be standing on like stages and talking. And I'm like, what? And I
What's
can't do this.
happening? Right.
Right,
Yes,
right.
same though, but
Yeah,
literally same.
yeah,
But literally same. This whole thing of like being pushed into the spotlight, it's like interesting because
yeah.
again, like I don't feel like, you know, you just said it. You didn't think that you would ever be, doing public
No,
speaking. That was not one of your like, I'm about to be out here, and same, like,
yeah. No, it was like when my brother passed, it was one of my biggest fears for like the last 10 years that held me back was that after he became an addict, I was just waiting for a call. And anytime I traveled, it almost felt like there was some sort of like emergency with my kids or just little things. I'd get calls
something.
from back home. And so I was
Right.
always thinking, I'm going to get the call that he dies when I'm out of town. Ironically, my boyfriend and I had gone to Florida. We actually met with Dr. Raymond Moody. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he is the man who coined the term near-death experience.
Ugh.
He wrote books that sold like 30 million copies. He is like the expert on near-death experiences, and he went from not believing in God into this whole thing where he's got his PhD and did all kinds of crazy research. So I had met with him, talked to him, and he invited us to a class, and we happened to already be going to Florida because I was guided to go just on a vacation. He booked the class for the weekend we were there, just 10 of us in a class with him.
Yeah.
And he's world renowned, and it's a new course he's teaching about the like nonsense of spirit. It's a whole
Right.
interesting take on it. But it was such a great class, and I'm feeling uplifted. The next morning, I'm at my friend's house. Next morning, I get a call. My brother died. So I'm thinking I'm facing my worst fear ever right now. And I
Right.
had a peace about me. I was grounded. All the lights went off my friend's house, and like the printer started going off. And Brian's my boyfriend. He's an electrician, and he's like, this stuff is not like it keeps happening. Like there's no way it's not
There's
them.
no way. Right.
But I made a song. Came to peace, and I went through the rest of the trip, and it actually like I overcame that fear. And then John says the next week later, he's like, "You think you've overcome your biggest fear?" He's like, "Wait till you're singing on stage." And I'm like,
No.
"No." I'm like, that wasn't a fear because I was never going to do
No.
that. Now
Right. Like,
I'm like,
no.
"Thanks, thanks."
Yeah. Like, no, no,
Right?
no.
Yeah. Uh,
Marcy, this is
yeah.
insane. Listen, if and when, I think you did say you're gonna get the EEG.
Yeah. It should be here next week. So I'm going to be
When you
starting to
get it,
post.
when you
Yes.
get it, I'm gonna have to come up and try it with you. Like, I would love
Please.
to be a
I would
part.
absolutely love. I've got plenty of extra places to stay here too. That's another thing with the house I'm in. Interestingly enough, there's some things we've been thinking about doing, kind of like Airbnb type thing, or even like workshop. We're on like 1.8 acres of land in an area of Raleigh that you can't get that kind of land. But
Right.
there's like all kinds of concepts eventually of doing that. But anytime you want to come stay, you got a place to stay. I definitely am going to be doing user testing, getting that set up as soon as the thing's in and I can figure this thing out because it's a whole new
Well,
technology to
I'll be
learn.
your I'll be
But
your
yeah,
your person, really, because
yeah.
I'm with you.
Well, my friend Sarah, who is actually one of my biggest mentors in this stuff because she awakened many years back. And I remember when I first heard her talk about this, I was kind of scared. I was like, especially
Right.
coming from like a Christian background, I thought this was like
Right. Yeah.
countering it. But now I've realized how much it all just emphasizes the same message. And
Right.
as people that have like limited our understanding
They've
about
messed
God
up.
and
Yes.
yes, right. And so, she actually has one of those, or photograph machines that she just recently got.
Yeah.
So what I've been guided to do is do a before with your
Yes.
aura. I said orb, I meant aura.
Aura. Yeah.
Your aura and the EEG before and then
Yeah.
during, and then doing one after to see
Yeah.
how it affects your whole aura. And so I'm super excited about getting the user testing going, because I think this is going to help people actually understand and see like how this affects neuroplasticity. This is not just some sort of like, I made up something. And
No, for real. Yeah.
with Brian having the audio background, there's been a few people who were accusing us of auto tuning voices. Like,
Man, what?
right. Like, we're just messing around. So he tries to stay out of it as much as possible. The only thing he will do is master my tracks at the end, just to level them and EQ them in ways
Right.
that he's just got a great ear for it. And he helped me to tune the voices in a little bit more clearly when we were first working on it. But it's just, I've got absolute proof of this when I have the scientific backing, and I'm super excited about taking that next step.
We're going to do this. We are really going.
Yes.
We're going to do this. It's going to be an amazing thing. We're going to have all the people, all the publicity. We're going to have it taken over the world. I mean, it's going to be a big thing. Really,
It's
it is.
exciting.
It's
It
going to be
is.
a big thing.
It's also
Like,
scary. Again, I think some of it's been like that scary thing for me. And that's why I'm having to learn to like, I used to care so much about what people thought, and having to let go of people that I thought were closest to me and get out of the mindset of like my small town and what people might think of me here is stuff that I have to do inner work on so that I can be okay. Because I know not everyone's going to understand this and not everyone's going to like it, and they're going to think whatever they want to think. But I
Right.
have to be firm in what I'm doing. And so I'm
Exactly.
being given all these lessons that are like really, really hard, so that if I can let go of the people closest to me, then I don't care what Jim
But
Bob over there says,
also letting go, you're getting your star family, like
Right,
you got
right,
me, you
absolutely.
know what I'm saying? I'm like,
Absolutely. I've met some of the most wonderful people that live all across the world already, like some
yeah,
people,
but
India,
I'm
New
just your
Zealand,
neighbor.
Australia. So
I'm in Tennessee.
yeah, I know that's not too bad. So
Yeah, I'm like, so
even closer.
literally
But it's just
anytime.
it's been amazing. So I would love to have you, definitely. I think
All
we could do
right,
some really
Marcie.
fun stuff in person.
Yes, absolutely
And
this.
then I'm not sure if I told you this, but I actually, some woman reached out to me. I don't know how, one of these like things, I don't know how it happened, but I got a text message and she was like, "We see you started an application for our show." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she sent me a link to this application. I looked at it, and it's a documentary style reality TV show for entrepreneurs. And she's the casting director, suddenly texting me saying, "I started filling out an application and never hit submit." And I'm going, "How did you see it if I did that? I didn't do this." So I went and I did fill it out, and then I got a video interview and then another interview. And so out of thousands of people that applied, they take around 70. So
Yeah.
Brian and I are actually going to be filming in January on this show, and they bring in like amazing like coaching programs, helping you like for startups and entrepreneurs to help you really frame your business and get it out there. And then they've got investors that come in, and they've got challenges they do, but it's not like these tacky reality shows that are like cutthroat. It's like, it's
Right.
literally like
Right.
just the best like kind of program that you can imagine. And so we'll be filming that in January. And ironically asked her when it would release, and she said targeting around the same week of John's passing, like in next summer. So I found that to be pretty interesting. And then
Pretty
of
in
course,
line.
the next day I was recording something. He said beta blocks. He's like, "I love it." Like, so I know that this is the direction. I'm like, that's the name of the show is called The Blocks,
Yeah.
BLOX. And they've got like 14 seasons. This is something that's well established, not just like starting up
Something
type of
just
thing.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, never wanted to be on TV, but here we go. I'm ready to kind of take the reins
Lock it
and
in.
do what I'm supposed to do. Yep.
Locking in, Marcie.
Right.
Lock it in. Lock it
Yeah.
in.
So what are you doing this weekend? You want to just get in the car and head on over?
You like, so you want to come up this weekend?
Right.
This
I'm
weekend?
loving this conversation though. Seriously.
No, but for real, we need to get together on calendar dates and figure out a time.
100%.
Are y'all okay from the hurricane?
Yeah, the rain was just terrible. The whole backyard is just basically mud, and we did have a copperhead. I've never seen one in my life, but it made it all the way up to the house. It bit my dog that was like 12 or 13, and it was like,
No.
I leave behind me, if you see, like my bedroom is actually got doors open up back here and it's fenced in. So I'll leave them open when the weather's nice and let the dogs go in and out.
Right.
And so we've had to keep them closed. So that's been a whole mess.
No.
But I mean, like Brian killed the thing, but it was midnight that this happened. So
No.
I didn't know. He swelled up so bad we had to go to an emergency vet at like 3 a.m. It was a nightmare, but he's made it through. And
so what they do for him?
They can do anti-venom, but like it doesn't matter. So that it was just like pain medicine is the only thing that they can do and give it some time. I just felt like he wasn't going to make it. It looked like he had a seizure or stroke that night. And so I had no idea what was going on. But he actually has turned around and he's back to normal. So it's been a
What?
journey.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's happening? Like
Yeah.
y'all got random
Oh
y'all got
yeah.
random snakes coming in the
Right. Right. Well, I think that's messing with Brian's fear because he's such an animal person. It's like the way that I've had to have my fear tested and have some faith is like
yes.
now he's scared to let the dogs out. I'm like, we got to
Right
get
now
over
he's
this
like
at some point.
y'all
Right.
are strictly indoor dogs now.
Right. I'm like, well, then you can keep cleaning up the poop that keeps happening in the house.
Yeah, better get it popping with those pee pads and
Right.
just
Right. Oh my
get him a
gosh.
potty patch. Call it a day. Call it a day, Marcie.
Yeah. That's so
All
funny.
right. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you.
blessing us and gracing us with your presence, your information, your new technology, your gifts and abilities. And this is just the start of our super amazing relationship. And I'm glad that we found each other. You
Me
know,
too.
now we're
I'm excited, soul sister.
absolutely. I'm like, because
I love it.
this has been
Yeah,
great.
it's just such a good field day. Field day. I can't say it's starting my day off in a really good feeling. Like I really appreciate that. So
Same,
thank you for the
same.
time that you've taken, and I'm excited to get to know you better.
Yes. All right, Marcie. I will speak with you soon
All
and
right,
we'll get this posted as soon as possible.
awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.